Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, wherever in the world you happen to be. I'm so glad you could join us for this Capital webinar. As you all hopefully know, I'm Carmen Mazzara, your Executive Director here at the Coalition for American Public Diplomacy and Leadership. Very excited to welcome you to what I know is going to be an interactive session and a very practical session for you as you think about how your organizations capitalize on AI. More importantly, how you structure everything so that your systems can actually tell you and give you useful information. This session is being recorded and will be available on the Capital YouTube page afterwards. And since I know many of you have nothing but time to sit and rewatch these things, the summary of this conversation will also be available in the member portal afterwards. I have a few questions for our amazing guest speaker, but I also invite you as we go through to put your questions in the chat, and we'll have particular time after the discussion for your questions. But as we go through, please do feel free to put them in there, to raise your hand, to weigh in. We do want to make this as useful and as practical for you all as possible. Also, a couple other quick bits of housekeeping. Our next event is June 11. It's one of our community conversations where we're inviting our recruiting agencies and our sponsors to come together for an informal dialogue about how you all like to be approached by new organizations seeking to partner with you. So we'll hope you'll join us for that. And then at the end of July, we will be in lovely Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for our next in-person workshop with thanks to GEC and IRH for their sponsorship of that event. So look for the registration links for that coming out in our Friday member email once I get that built and done. So thanks to all of you for coming. Very excited to have this conversation in particular because I know how excellent our key speaker is. So Timm McShane, among other many roles, is currently a technology leadership coach with Blaze Point Systems, where he focuses on developing those leadership skills that you all need to grow for leading your technological folks, your directors, your vice presidents, if you have a chief technology officer, and he provides that management consulting experience by exploring key ideas as emerging technologies and how they relate to all of the companies and organizations like yours. He has had many technical leadership roles, including with Fanatics. So, for those of you who know that wonderful company, SparkFun Electronics, BPX, and many others, where he has supported engineering, application development, data analytics, and all of those key roles that underpin so much of what we do, and has been serving customers in the US federal space, particularly with a focus on cyber and enterprise data management, which is a key part of what we'll talk about today. He has a bachelor's degree from my alma mater, the amazing, the American University, and an MBA in executive leadership from the University of Colorado, Boulder. So, Timm, thank you. Welcome. So glad you could join us. I know it's early in Colorado, but I'm very glad you could come out to talk to all of our members here today. So, sorry, did you want to weigh in?
Oh no, I was just going to say
Yep.
thank you for that. And
I,
yeah, it's early, but this is my third or fourth meeting for the day, so we're fully
Excuse
primed
me.
and ready to go.
It's my third or fourth cup of coffee, as everybody knows. So we can tell the difference. So to get us started, I'm curious. Most all of our folks on the line are basically small businesses and smaller organizations. And I'm curious, how can they get more insights into their data by leveraging AI overall?
Yeah, there are a lot of very effective use cases for organizations of all sizes. The most important one that I have found, particularly with AI, is a problem that I've kind of been struggling with my entire 25-year career. And it's knowledge management, right? Over the course of um, an organization's lifespan, you've created a lot of documents, you have stored a lot of information, you've put things in various places, right? I'm sure you've tried implementing some sort of search tool or something along those lines to try to get the information that your organization has created, that is yours, out. Like, how did we answer this? What did we do here? Uh, that knowledge is very valuable and very hard to get. The easy AI has been the first tool that has really solved that problem for a lot of organizations. Well, we can get to the pitfalls of that shortly, but as you're trying to understand this, you can definitely have internal, private, agents running on your systems that have all, I always call it food, right? It's the data that AI can scan and read. So it's eating it. This is why I call it food. And and now that's accessible to you, right? Like, how did we approach this campaign? How did we do this thing? I feel that that is just about the most valuable, right? Everyone wants to think about the Gen AI pieces of it and be like, oh, it's going to write all these memos and policy docs and all of that stuff. It's, I bet you everyone on this call is like, no, I'm good at that. That's like, I don't need it to do that for me. But the having to remember everything your organization has done before you, other people have done, or just what's your collection of value, like your differentiation, your knowledge, all of that. It's hard for any one person to know that, and this really does solve this problem. And one of the things that we're helping organizations with now is, for lack of a better term, that future proofing, right? Because now you've got someone, they're very talented, they've done a lot of good work for you, they leave, their work is still available to you, right? Like not like it's easier to take that. You're still going to feel the hit, of course, you're providing value, but the a lot of their work is still just as accessible to you in a much easier fashion. In my mind, that is one of the biggest game changers for AI. Is I know it seems silly, but we finally got search right. And I say this as someone who basically graduated college before Google came out, right? Like, so I've watched it all evolve. But when you think of it in those terms, that is just about the most valuable use case that I can think of across any organization. Now, there are a lot of places where AI can provide value, and I'm sure some people have thought of them and they're kind of exploring those. But it's because AI can integrate into a lot of different places, right? So depending on how you want your operations to work, AI kind of fits in. Historically, technology evolution, for lack of a better term, has fit in neatly into like a nice little box to say, okay, it now makes this area better, or it does this other thing. And AI doesn't, right? So it fits in kind of everywhere, but then managing it becomes a different problem. So like understanding where you fit it in and how you're pulling value out of it becomes really important. So this is why that use case adoption, okay, what is the problem we need to solve? Does AI solve that problem for us? It's not, hey, I want AI to solve a problem for me. It's like, where can we find efficiencies? Where can we find value? What is the limiting factor for my organization's ability to pivot or respond or scale? And then, because there's a lot of different forms of AI too, how does AI fit into that to allow us to kind of um, remove that limiting factor?
I love that. That's such an important question because everybody either assumes it's going to do everything or doesn't think it can do anything for them. So even just as you said, the knowledge management piece about what you already know in order to grow.
Hmm.
And how can an organization figure out how to answer those questions you posed about pivoting and responding and scaling? But then the complement to that is how to figure out how to organize what they already have so that AI can tell them or help them answer those questions.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really important, right? That's why you have to think about it first in terms of, okay, we want to do like organizationally, this is important to us, right? Like that everyone has a mission, everyone's trying to go out and do the work that they're trying to do, and there's a place where you're not resourced correctly from a personnel perspective, or this is going to provide a better path forward for you. Understanding those use cases becomes really important. And then the second part of that is understanding what access to information you have, right? So do you want to use like a web tool? That's fine, right? Like a web tool is going to, from a Gen AI perspective, something along the lines of one of the most popular. I'm not going to start naming them and giving soft endorsements. But you know what they are, and you probably use one or two. That doesn't know you and your organization. It might know your industry. It could help you think of a good use case for your organization in terms of something that you want to try to do. But what you need to do is kind of get it within your ecosystem so that it's supporting that. And it's easier than it sounds. I know that sounds daunting, but there are a lot of however you've structured your technical infrastructure, for lack of a better term, there's a way to plug AI in I don't want to say simply, but in a very straightforward manner that then connects with how you want to. And the biggest issue around that is when you give it data access, you've given it data access, right? So now everyone who has access to that has access to everything. So what you want to, that data governance piece becomes really important. Who is allowed to access what data inside of your organization, right? Because if you just, I mean, the horror stories, you drop an AI agent in, it has access to all of your data. Anyone in your organization could grab it. Cool. All of your HR information is now available to everyone inside of your organization, right? You're like, wow, that's not what we wanted. Not the thing we wanted people to search internally. So, that's just a simple one, but I'm sure there's, executive memos or briefings that you've put together that you're like sensitive, helps us drive guidance, but let's not have those things available, right? So making sure your data becomes tagged and managed in a really effective way. And you probably have a tool that's capable of doing that for you now. I'm really good at some point you got to give a soft acknowledgement, but I'm not exactly a defender, right? SharePoint does a really good job managing your document repository if you're using it, right? And that has built-in controls. So if you're sitting here being like, how are we ever going to do that? You're probably doing a part of it already, right? So, like if you have private drives somewhere inside of your organization, or to, I guess, to plug the big two, if you have an S3 bucket from Amazon that's storing your data, but only some people have access to it, those those permissions carry forward through AI. So only people who are supposed to be able to access data will have access to the data they need to. But, really thinking through that data lineage in terms of, okay, we have this piece of information, who has access to it? How do they pull it in? That becomes one of the biggest parts of your implementation plan. First is, okay, where does it fit in side of our technical infrastructure? Because you're not going to just open up all of your data to those third-party web applications, right? You're certainly not going to do that. So it has to be somewhere inside anyway. And then two, it's okay, is our data managed effectively so that we can um, protect what we have and still make it useful for our organization?
And what are some questions that the folks on the line can ask themselves or consider as they prepare for that effective management and adoption of AI?
Yeah, that data question is the first one. Okay, what data do we want to give it access to? How do we protect that? That is really, once you've answered that, okay, this is how we're going to scale. That's the next one. And then one of the things that we're tackling is that level of trust, right? So when you're going to be in there, how you're going to ask you're going to ask, I always call them bots. You're going to ask a bot a question. It's going to give you an answer. Do you trust that answer implicitly? Are you using this as something that is giving you, you know, access to the information you need? Okay, cool. This did the search for me. I know this now, right? We've all read stuff that was generated by AI, and you can kind of feel it and know it right away, right? So that idea of, if you start chaining AI into your system, right? If you're like, okay, we're going to trust it implicitly, this is going to do this piece of activity for me. We're going to get a coding bot internally and have it build new applications for us. They're going to be front facing. How much review do you want around the content that's being created as you're solving these questions and putting your organization's um, operational environment, right? Like how you do business in the hands of an autonomous black box for all intents and purposes, right? Um, one of the biggest things we try to support when we're doing AI engagements is AI explainability. Why did it give me this thing? What is the rationale behind it? What is our confidence score around its answer, the way it approached things, um, its methodology, right? Like really being able to say, this is why you got that answer, and this is how you move forward. AI by nature is non-deterministic, which means that you could ask the same question to the same bot twice and not necessarily get the same answer. Um, that is an uncomfortable feeling when you're like, no, 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 I would just want the right answer. And explainability can kind of give you that, like, it is that confidence score becomes really important because you're like, okay, we can trust this. There's a lot of ways to do that. You can do it with a person, like human in the loop. You've probably heard that. You could have another agent in the loop trying to score against each other. There are a few models that be like, okay, yes, we trust this, we can move forward. And then how do you plug that into the next piece of the chain, right? Like as you're developing something or creating, um, that that's important, right? Like, yeah, it can solve a lot of work for you. It can also cause a lot of harm. So under like piecing it all together in terms of, okay, this is how it's going to operate becomes a piece of it. And it's something you're not going to think about until you get that first piece of content or solution or answer or whatever from an agent. And you're like, okay, do we trust it? Right? Like that, like you're not going to realize that that's a question you have until you get it. And like, hopefully you're reading the response. I always tell people don't outsource your thinking. You could outsource your work all you want, never outsource your thinking. That's what we're always going to do it better than machines. Everyone on this call is very talented, right? Like a lot of experience, has seen things and are in spots that they're in because of their talent. Don't give any of that away. That they can't do what you do. They can't. The bots they're supporting or they're supportive tools, right? Use them as such. Think, understand, figure out how you want to get these agents to support you to get your organization to move faster to help make the impact change that you want with them.
So for our non-technical folks, by which I mostly mean me, can you talk a little bit more about how that iterative learning process goes? So you ask your bot a question, it gives you an answer. You go, oh, there's some parts of that that are not the way that is actually true, or the way that I expected it to be, or whatever. How do you then teach it to get closer to the correct answer?
Yeah, and that is unfortunately a fairly technical process, right? Like I can explain it in a non-technical way. You can train the machines, right? So um, they have built-in feedback loops where you can go and be like, hey, that's not quite right, right? Like this is how we want you to operate, and it'll take that and kind of provide it in there. One of the things, another thing that we're working on and trying to solve is this concept of a context window. So, trying to understand both. There are two limits inside of a context window, and this is basically the information that your algorithm uses to answer your question, right? So, a larger context window means you can feed it more information to provide you a better answer. So, different models have different context windows, understanding basically how much it's not memory, but like how much quote unquote memory it uses to store all of that. And sometimes it's listed in tokens or something like that. Just think of it as small bits of information. But the other is the hardware that it runs on, right? So if it's a certain cloud environment, you pay more for a larger machine that runs a stronger algorithm to get that thing, right? Like that's one of the scalars that you're going to see in terms of cost and capability. You're going to want to line that up to how your organization operates and how much information you want it to do, right? You don't want to spend too much. That's not what you want to do, right? Like you didn't let go of somebody to spend twice as much on a machine to do the same job. That's not what you did. So you shouldn't let go of somebody anyway. It's the person's intelligence that you want. This just speeds your mission. But what you get then is a machine that's using a little bit more information, right? So, and there's a training process that you can do kind of ahead of time. There are organizations out there that help you build bots that run inside of your organization that don't require code, right? Like your non-technical folks are very capable of creating these bots and kind of training them specifically. And they'll go through steps where it's like, okay, this is our version one of this machine. And you go in there and you're like, okay, well, 2 weeks later, you're like, not quite right. You can go in there and fine tune it, right? You can go in there and say, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. So while that's very technical on the back end, those services make that a lot easier for you to go in and kind of manage that process in a way that is not technically that you don't need a PhD in data science to go in and do. Um, but it's because they have many PhDs in data science that have created the system that allows you to point and click and right click and then select a new training path or something like that. Like, okay, it'll now operate in the way that you want it to, right? You can change the tone, you can change the behavior. What my personal AI bot, I'm a New Yorker by trade. I don't want compliments, I don't want flattery, and I don't want verbose, right? And it knows all of those things now. I want the answer now, thanks. I don't need no fluff, no anything else. Just give it to me, and don't be polite is usually the way that I ask it to answer my question. And sometimes because the public source AI agents are going to be very complimentary, right? I'm sure we've all seen that from anything that you've used. They're like, "Oh my God, you're so right," and then it tells you what it thinks you want to hear, right? Which is one of the reasons why that explainability becomes really important. So you want to fine tune. In my opinion, you always want to fine tune that out, right? Like you, because we had it run through something on one of our development pods recently, and my head of that product came to me. He's like, yeah, this isn't good because it gave us a set of numbers and metrics that we cared about, and then it was like, okay, how'd you get these? And it's like, I literally made them all up, was what it said. Now the bot was like, yeah, there's no basis in reality for any of those numbers. I just thought that that's what you wanted to see. And I was like, I'm glad you asked that question, right? Like, don't outsource your thinking. You get a set of information from it, understand how it got there, why it got there, right? Fine tune the things you don't want out of it. If it's running inside of your organization, it should do exactly what you want, and you should have the ability to do that. Um, it's a tool, it's serving you. Um, Always keep that in mind. You're not serving it. A lot of people are now in this spot where they're like, oh no, my AI is down. I guess I can't do anything right now. It's like, oh no, you're in the wrong spot, right? Like um it's just helping you move faster. And if as long as that's how you're approaching it, I think you're approaching it in the right way.
I'm sure there's a correlation between AI being down and beautiful weather outside that I want to not work today. But
Uh,
that's that's for a different bot to run.
yeah, well, I live in Colorado, so it's always nice.
It's always nice there, for sure. And you've talked about the importance of context. How can our attendees understand whether their data is ready to give AI that right context? And are there questions they need to
Yeah.
ask themselves about how they can put good inputs in so they get good inputs out?
Oh, yeah, the old fashioned. I mean, that's never changed as long as data has existed. The idea of, well, if we have bad data and we put it in there, we're going to get bad data out, right? Um, no one knows well, you know your organization best is what I'll say, right? Like how it's structured and what your data looks like. And yeah, if you feed it bad data, right, which is why AI chaining becomes so important and understanding those outputs, right? Because if you have one bot create something bad and it feeds it into another bot and it makes it worse, right? Like everything you're using is going down. But what you want to do is when you're putting that information in there is use your trusted sources, use things that you know are right, and ask for citations, right? Like ask for it. I do that all the time and it hates it. I was like, where'd you get this from, right? Like anytime you're doing, like, give me the link to the doc that you're using to pull that, because it will make stuff up every now and then. It's called hallucinating, right? Like it's just trying to do something and it can't. And once it gets in that loop, it's usually stuck, right? Because it can't move backwards in its thought chain. So it just assumes kind of every step is correct as it got there. So if it's there and it's like, well, this is true, that's part of its context window now. That incorrect piece of information and getting that out is harder, right? So what we typically do is, I think this is actually a really great question, Carmen, is get the context in first, right? Not ask it to do anything. Be like, hey, I've got this information, or I've got this. I want you to use this and this and this specifically, right? That way you can feed in the exact details you want. And that's why the context window, how much space you have basically to fill it with the details you want matter, because it can, depending on how you structured it, you can overwhelm it, right? You can give it too many documents. You can be like, hey, I'm building something for this project or this customer or, this organization. these are the things they care about. We know that, and you can kind of pull it in. Um, we have a lot of coding assistants where I work, and one of the things we've done is create it's a it's a markdown file. It's a wiki page, right? That's basically what it is. That we feed it in every but when it starts up every time, and that gives it a set of instructions. And you can do that with a text document. You don't have to do it with a markdown, right? You're like, hey, this is your instruction set for how you're going to operate. And that's how you can basically like fine tune in real time, right? Like if you can't go in and change how an algorithm works or change how a bot behaves, you can give it this instruction set, and that becomes part of its context window. And you can always tell it to refresh that, right? It's like, hey, I want you to refresh on this document or make sure you're focused on this, because that gives us the ability to basically mimic better practices. So with our coding agents, what we get are we get much better code, right? Like one, we're able to part of what we've done is completely change how it manages its internal context of what we're asking it to build, but also provide it that guidance to be like and build like this, right? Like use these coding practices, use these stylistic terms, use this thought process to solve problems. And that gives it the ability to, and that creates much better output, right? And you can do that with a Word doc. Hey, this is how we've written things before. We want it to sound like this, right? You can forget verbose, forget anything else, right? You can do that with your PowerPoint presentations. You can do anything that you wanted to create or anything that you wanted to answer. You can do it with that stylistic note by basically saying, when you start, hey, use this. That becomes really powerful. And it's a good approach to it. So yeah,
And you've talked about so many different uses for PowerPoint creation and Word doc creation. Are there data categories? If folks wanted to look at all of the participants they welcomed or all of the folks who've applied and didn't make it
mhm.
through and get trends, is it standardization that's important? Is it breadth? And are there key pieces of the way they need to have the data structured that just make AI move more quickly or smoothly?
There, depending on the agents, there aren't, right? Like the better your data, the better it's going to be. But like if like you mentioned, applicants or something like that, you can feed it in PowerPoint or excuse me, PDF documents, and it'll do just fine, right? Like it's going to be able to read that, understand it, and ideally capture that information and source it, right? So if you're looking at people applying for grants and you want to like do a faster regression analysis on, okay, we selected this one, why, right? Like we know why. Is that true? Look at our trending across applications, the data that we collected, is it accurate? Right? Like does it think there's a mismatch somewhere? It can do that data validation and data cleaning for you. It can populate those tables for you if you trust it enough, right? Like you can say, hey, okay, create me a spreadsheet or create me a database that has this information in it pulled from this part of the file here that stores it there. Now let us do some trending on it, and then maybe ask it to do trending on it too, if you have an algorithm that can handle that. What you want to do is understand and capture those parts. It's a really good second set of eyes from that perspective, right? And then you're like, okay, what is our trend over the last 3 years in terms of our grant structure? Is that what we want us to be as an organization, right? Like you can look at that and say, okay, we're very inconsistent or we're very consistent. Maybe we're too consistent, right? Like there's an ability to get that understanding in a way that maybe historically you haven't been able to. It was either going to be too time consuming or it was going to be um, maybe the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? Like bad bang for the buck. Um, but the AI takes those manual tasks that I don't want to sit here and click this button 45 times. AI will just do that for you, right? Like it's done. You don't have to think about it. And that opens up a lot of new possibilities for you, right? Like that kind of trending analysis, that kind of insight and introspection into those decisions or something along those lines can be um, quite valuable if that's what you want from it, right? Like again, if your organization's mission is like we want to make sure we're making the most impact, you could also look at how different things you've done, the kind of measurable impacts that matter to you, right? Are we capturing it right? What does that trend look like? Is there something else that we think might provide better? Um, and it might even be able to do forecasting and modeling for you, depending on the agent, right? Like if you're like, okay, if we did this or this, which one has outcomes that align better with what we're looking for? Those are questions that you can ask as long as you're giving it data or context around how something changes another thing, right? Like you don't want it guessing. That's how the context you have to provide the data, you have to feed it so that it can make those decisions and choices for you.
I love that in terms of both. We talk a lot about, participants who go on the program and are successful and come back the next year, or trying to model an archetype of someone who would be good to recruit and attract. So I think that's wonderful to say, these are the trends. Is this who we want to be? Is this who we think where the world is going? So that, as you
Hmm.
said, we do the thinking, it does the manual processing
Yeah.
and all those pieces. So my last question before we open the floor up, obviously, as you talked about, safety, regulatory compliance, all of those are key pieces of this.
Hmm.
And we have folks in lots of different countries on the call, but are there ways maybe not to ensure that AI is safe and compliant, but to make it as safe and compliant as it can be, both with rules in the US and then in other places like in the EU or different countries?
Yeah, the EU is the first thing that comes to mind, right? So having an international business background is one of those things that I was like, okay, who has the most restrictive data requirements, and then just use that as your standard is always been my approach. So even if the United States has lax requirements, um, it has 51 sets of data requirements, 52, 53 if you're working out of Puerto Rico, you right? Like 54 if you're working out of Guam. Like the number will keep going up. So I'm sure the way that everyone operates is like you take the most restrictive and you work from there, right? So you can try to understand, okay, these places have really strict AI requirements or data asks. And then you just use that and then you understand as the policy changes, right? Like that's really important. I've supported the federal government, right? When the policy changes, you have to be aware and stay up to speed on that and understand those differences. And the same thing is going to be happening, one with private data. I don't think the days of what Europe is doing are over, right? Like they may even become more restrictive as time goes on and as AI advances, right? The right to forget is going to become much more important. Um, that's going to be a driver. So what you want to do is kind of understanding, okay, this is where I'm operating inside of, these are my regulations, right? And just let the hard to satisfy ones bubble up, right? Like, and really make that your bounds. Around also what ethical considerations matter to you, right? Like there's following the letter of the law, and there's this is what's right and important to us. So obviously you have to do both. Right? Like no one wants to sit here and have an unethical machine telling them how to move forward. So that's an important part to feed it to, right? Like this is who we are, this is how we operate, this is what matters. And that could be data privacy that exceeds even Europe's requirements. That could be explainability that says this is why we are doing this thing, right? It's like, hey, this is the path we're taking and this is why, right? Like that, even if it's your actions, not necessarily AI explainability, right? If you're like, hey, we want to do this thing, does this meet what we want to do, right? And have that critical eye on it. And then really be able to say, according to our values and our mission and other things, this is what we want to do. And you can use the machines as a guide, right? If you're feeding it all the rules and structure, it's good with rules and structure. So you can get that out of it really quickly where it's scoring you and grading you against those different pieces. So, having AI grade itself is weird. We do it all the time. We use different algorithms, different bots, different models to compare the same thing and try to understand where the results are and which one's better for us. Very easy for a technical organization to do that. So I understand that that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. But yeah, there are ways that you can do that in a non-time consuming way. But what you want to do is make sure that how you operate really fits the way you want to, and you can build that explainability and that like requirement process into it. But yeah, I, I think that
Do
we're going
you?
to get more regulations sooner.
Mhm.
Aren't we waiting on an EO right now? I think is what I saw yesterday is that there might be a new AI EO coming out today. I've been like scouring the news for it. Um,
You all heard it here first. First, folks, you can look for that executive order by, yeah, 5 p.m. on a holiday weekend is typically when
that
executive orders come out. So,
and when I'm sure grant proposals drop and other things, right? They were like, "Oh, you want a grant? This is yeah, right. Like, get it to us by Tuesday. Get
exactly.
it."
For those of you outside the US, see how good you have it? No, I'm kidding. So I do want to open it up to some questions. I have at least one here, but folks, please feel free to raise your hands, put them in the chat, and we'll start with the one that folks have already sent me, and we can go from there. So this was actually a technical question, so well done, Agron. But what do you think is the best backend programming language of a platform that can be used for AI?
Yeah, and that's I don't want to say it's a really easy answer. It's probably very controversial, but it's Python. Python has a lot of very strong libraries out there to support developing AI, building AI, tweaking. A lot of the algorithms are kind of built in AI. So if you want, or excuse me, are built, they are actually built with AI. Claude builds itself. That's a topic for another time. But Python is the language that's used most often. It is also one of the best data management programming languages. I'm not going to sit here and say it's really easy to learn. It is one of the easier ones to pick up. It like to get to proficient. I would say Python's definitely on the easier side in the top 10%. If your organization does that and that's how you're going to run, it is then easier to find people who know how to use the language, right? There's two benefits there. One, a lot of people are doing this work with that language, and the second is that it is easier to find people who can help you support that, right? Where if you go in a very niche answer for how you want to do things, if you're like, oh no, Golang is definitely going to be the way to handle this, right? Like there are 100 Python developers for every one Golang, right? And I'm not saying Golang is better or anything along those lines, but you will get a lot of bang for your buck out of Python in terms of developing with it, managing your data in general, and kind of using that as your processing language. I say this as a guy that learned C in school, so there's a lot. There's no bias when I tell you this is the right way from a language, right? I've developed in everything. Don't worry about it. Python's been the past. It's going to keep being the future.
You make it sound like you're 300 years old, which is not fair. Um, so my next question is from our folks who are curious how they can make the case to leadership up the chain, who maybe think of AI in a generative sense and not as you talked about it as a knowledge management piece.
hmm
Are there things, and obviously you come from the technical space, but are there arguments that folks can use to say to their higher ups, these are some key questions you as leaders need to ask to make all of our lives as staff easier?
Yeah, so I think about this especially in my coaching work where I kind of support people managing up, for lack of a better term. Like, how do you make your higher ups job easier? How do you understand their concerns and all of that stuff? And that's what you want to really do is you want to think about this from a managing up perspective. What are their concerns? What are the risks that might be keeping them up at night that maybe they don't even know? What are the issues facing the organization that are going to be, you know, impactful, right? Like they're like, oh, if this happens, or we have to prevent, we want to go in this direction, but we can't, right? Like really think from their perspective what's going to happen, and use that as your framing mechanism, right? One of the things that like I still have to kind of explain, right? Like, while AI is priced at this current price point and it's going up, AI is going to be going up in price. But where it is now, and even where they're trying to get it, the return on investment is simple, right? Like the reason why I have three paid accounts is because they all work somewhat differently. They all do different things better, and I know how to use all three of them to do that. But at $20 a month, right? I need to save 1 hour a month right? Like if I save 1 hour, I have a positive ROI, right? If I'm doing 1 hour more work, if I'm doing um, any small amount of change that this is providing me is massive at these price points, right? So when they're thinking, how do we invest these dollars? You know, you all have limited funds. Everybody has limited funds, right? Like we can get into it, but yeah, everybody it seems has limited funds. So that hey, we can get this much work for this cost becomes like I mean, when you hire someone, that's implicitly what you're doing. What is this person capable of doing? What's their cost going to be? When you buy software as a service, a platform outside of your organization that's doing something for you, that's implicitly what you're saying is that this cost is going to provide this value to us in this sort of a way, right? So when you start framing AI, when you're like, if we brought this bot in and it was a question answer bot for us that just does searches and it's going to look over our data and give us answers, and it's going to cost us some amount of money per month, but it's going to save the organization. It's going to save me personally 10 people hours a month. It's going to save four other people the same amount. You're saving you 40 people hours a month. What is 40 people hours a month worth to your organization? What can you do with that time? And what is the cost is whatever the pot ends up costing you, right? Like that's the trade-off. And a lot of people are, you know, maximizing your dollars, maximizing your impact is one of the first things an organization does, right? Like you have to think about this is the resources we have available. This is how we're going to leverage them. That's how you really want to frame your conversation around their pain points and around how it can be a really positive return on investment, right? Like have this understanding of where that is and how it can get you there. Particularly for internal things that aren't like, oh, it's going to write a doc for it. It's not going to write research papers for you. It's just not, right? You write research. How do you write them faster? Like AI lets you do that, understand how, and explain it in that sort of way, right?
I love that. It's that same grounding in deliberate use, right? What is the
Hmm.
hours saved? What is the capacity added? And why is that
Yeah,
useful? And not just chasing the current fad or doing the popular
yeah,
thing right now.
yeah. And you don't want to do that, right? Because you don't want valuable people's time, money, resources, free credits that you get through organizations because you're a nonprofit, right? All of those things matter. All of those things are very valuable, and how they're leveraged is important, right? So yeah, you don't want to chase a fad to chase a fad. You want to chase a fad for a reason. Give them the reason.
All right. Well, friends, we are just about time. So any last minute questions that you want to again send to me directly or put in the chat, we can keep Tim for one extra minute, I'm sure. All right.
I blocked off a full hour.
Well, there you go. You might have 15 minutes to stand on your head or do whatever. No.
Yeah.
Friends, things you're struggling with, questions you've had, arguments you're trying to make to your higher ups. All right. Well, I'm not seeing anybody typing, but
Yeah.
we will have the summary later if you want to review all these great high-level ideas, particularly around doing it on purpose and not just doing it to do it, and really building the systems and the guardrails and the arguments that make sense to do this for you, rather than just kind of throwing caution to the wind and having it not be of service. And I particularly love the emphasis on not outsourcing your thinking because you all know your businesses way better than any bot or any of us do. So,
Yeah. It's I just had interns and I've got more coming. I had interns all spring semester and they're coming again in the summer. And that was the thing I constantly had to reinforce to them, right? Like, please don't outsource your thinking. Um, and some get it, some don't, right? But it's the most important thing to remember along the process, right? It'll take all your tedious work away, freeing you up for the important thinking, processing, relationship building that matters.
I do think of it sometimes like a wonderful intern. You have to still check their work. You still have
Yep.
to give them lots of
Hmm.
guidance, but it can do some things that you would not otherwise have the
That
ability
is
to do.
really good framing. I've definitely heard the like fresh out of college employee as an example, right? Like super energetic, happy to be there, is going to do all this stuff for you. But yeah, you got to check the work, you got to validate it and all that stuff. It's a very apt analogy.
All right. Well, thank you, friends. I am going to ask you to do our super quick poll to let us know how we did. Please do plan to join us at future Capital events and webinars. We're so glad to have you in the Capital family and community. Thank you, Tim, so much for sharing all of your expertise and putting it in language that those of us who do not have PhDs in data science and never, ever, ever, ever will can understand. And I look forward to seeing you all at future Capital events. Please do let us know how we can best be of service to you. That is what the community is here for. Thanks, everybody.